Hello everybody, welcome back to Waffles RC. Today we start another project. But first, X-Max is fixed. I got a new axle shaft for it, so it runs and drives, just charging batteries again. You guys did give some good suggestions about the steering issue. So what's happening is the steering servo is going its full travel exactly how it's supposed to do. It's the steering itself, like the steering saver. It has a pivot point that turns. What's happening when I turn left is that the wheels will stay, but the servo is pushing the steering saver instead of actually turning the wheels. So I don't know if I have something wrong with the steering saver or whatever that is, but that's the main issue. Besides that, that runs. Still taking it out, practicing the whole jump thing. It's going to take a while to get used to, but we'll get there. So, what are we building now? Because obviously, I have a few crawlers, and now I have a basher and the award-winning trail vehicle. So what we're building now is similar to my hauler, but bigger. That's right, bigger. So I really like the Tamiya 14 scale big rigs. I think they look really cool. Tons of scale detail. They're just gorgeous looking trucks, and I wanted to build one. But the only downfall is that they're 14 scale. When you put them up next to one of these, it's about the same size, which that's not how it is in the real world. Big rigs are bigger than regular vehicles. So I've only been able to find one person, at least on the internet, that's not including everybody in the world, I'm sure someone else has done it, who did a 10 scale big rig. It looks absolutely awesome. It's cab over, flat black, just absolutely gorgeous build. Sits nice and low to the ground, does burnouts, all sorts of really fun stuff. So I want something like that, but mine's not going to be like that one because that's copying. And that's not me. I'm not going to copy somebody else. So what is mine going to be? I'm sure at least 3 of you are asking. So mine is going to be a 6x6 for starters, but a bit of a different type of 6x6, and also mine is not going to be 10 scale because, well, I don't know what scale it's going to be because I'm going to make it. It's going to be bigger than all of those over that way. And the reason why I don't know exactly what scale it is because I decided to go with these axles right here. Now, these are very wide. I got these axles for a reason. They are open differentials. Sure you can't see, but turning this one and this one's not moving, but that is. I learned from the hauler that if it's all locked up, it will not turn, especially if there's weight on the back axles. So because of that, I went with these. These axles are for the Axial RBX 10, which comes with an open differential. Downfall about these is that they're incredibly wide, but that just means my bigger gets to be much bigger. See, can't even see it off the camera. Now, the other question I'm sure some of you are asking is, what body am I going to do? Well, I do like the Peterbilts. They are very good looking, but everybody has them. They have the cab over, they have the 389. There's also the Cascadia, the Ford. You know, there's a few options in the 14th scale. But as you guys know, I like to be different. So the body that I'm going to do is going to be a Kenworth C500, which looks like this. So to get mine to look like this, what I have to do is make my own body. Now, I do not have a 3D printer. I have a welder and I have a lot of metal. So, yes, you're correct. I'm making it out of metal. Yes, it's going to be very heavy. If you are new to this channel, let me fill you into what everybody else knows. I don't care about weight. I'm going to make it heavy because this one is going to be a bit crazy. It's going to be a big build. It's going to take quite a bit of time, so get prepared for a number of videos on this one. To start off, I have to make the frame because I have the axles. So since I have the axles, I know what width I need to make my frame, which will give me the basis of about how wide I need to make the body. Once I know width, then I can figure out height and, other 3D dimensions. But just so it's easier for you guys to see, I'm going to show you my CAD drawing that I came up with. Been working on it for a few days now. It's going to give you a much better idea of what this is going to look like. Brought the computer out so that way you guys can see the CAD drawing that I came up with. I already have it loaded, so all we have to do is open it. There it is. I don't have CAD. This is my version of how I'm going to make it, essentially. We have ourselves a front wheel. We have a hood. We have the cab. I'm going to do a sleeper, but I may do one that's a little bit longer. Some steps, big old fuel tanks, which we don't need fuel because it's electric. And then the frame rails. And as you can see here, the back wheels are somewhere, over here. So that's the basic premise of this. Also, the other thing that I'm going to do with this particular build is I'm going to make the back part of it a bit modular. So I am going to make a trailer, still trying to settle on what type of trailer I'm going to make. It's going to be a big one because it's going to be a big truck. So the whole modular idea is basically I'm going to make the truck itself multi-purpose. It's going to tow the trailer, whatever I think of. But then if any of you watch Casey Liddell here on the YouTubes, you'll know that he has a thing on the back of one of his trucks called a Zack lift. So what I'm going to try to do, it'll be easier if I show you. So as you can see here, this is my idea for the Zack lift. This is what the Zack lift actually looks like. So now you have a good comparison. We have to make that look like that, but we're going to make it modular just like that. So basically that would mean that this piece comes off of the truck, and then the truck is still usable to tow trailers and stuff, but then you put this back on, and hydraulic rams, hydraulic back here, hopefully, kind of the goal. And then we have ourselves a wrecker. So it'll be a 2-in-1 vehicle. It'll be a wrecker and a big towing vehicle. So we'll leave those right there for inspiration for this build. So let's start looking at some parts. These are the parts that I have so far. We have our front axle, we have our rear axle, and this one's red because I couldn't get another one that had the red pieces in black in time for this video. But it'll all be covered with wheels and spray paint. We can make it all match. So we have our front axle, we have our rear axle, and then we have our rear axle. Now I know somebody is going to say something about the fact that neither of these are pass-through rear axles to be able to run a drive shaft from here to here. You are very observantly correct. So I learned from the hauler that it's not very fun to try, and all the ones that have pass-throughs are either for the 14 scale, which are too small for what I wanted, or they're completely locked, which I didn't want. So we have to pick the lesser of a few evils. That doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, it made sense in my head, so just make it make sense to you, I guess. Anyhow, how, you ask, am I going to power both of these rear axles and the front axle when it's not a pass-through? Well, that's a very easy question to answer. Multiple transfer cases and multiple drive shafts. Yep. So one drive shaft will come out of the transfer case into the front axle, and another drive shaft will come out of another transfer case and go to the very back axle using an idler bearing, basically. So it'll go over this axle, then down to this axle. I don't have the transfer cases here to show you the idea in my head of how that's going to work, but I'm hoping that it will. And then to power this entire monstrosity that I'm going to be building, I have an idea. I have to see if I can get the parts, 1. 2, if it will work. But until then, we have a lot of work to do before we even start thinking about sending power to all these axles through motors. So, next step, enough talking. I'm going to drink some water because it's a little warm, not super hot. It's about 85, so it's kind of a nice day. So now we need to get our frame rails. And no, they are not aluminum. Okay, so if you've been around the channel for a while now, you know that I am a big fan of the 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square tubing. It's what I use for all my frames. And it works really well. It's very strong, but it's a bit too small for this particular build because big rigs have bigger frames. So this won't cut it. So what, you may ask, am I going to use? The only thing I could find is this, which is 3/4 thickness. It's 3/16 thickness, so nice and strong. But you see how it's not boxed? That's because I didn't want the box. So I guess you would say I'm building a flat rail chassis because this is flat. It's a frame rail, therefore flat rail chassis. Science. And to connect them all together throughout the whole frame, just got some 3/4 inch, same 3/16, or sorry, 1/8 thickness, and this will go across the frame in all the places that it needs to go across to hold stuff like motor, transmission, shocks, control arms, whatever they need to hold. That's what this is for. So it will be my first flat rail chassis as a 6x6 big rig. First steps first are going to be figure out my length. I figured out my length, 3 feet. I feel like that's a good length. We're certainly going to find out. I got to mock it all up first, but then we will start putting a frame rail together and get some axles mounted. Okay, this is where I've gotten so far. Made the start of the frame. Just the basic layout. Have the axles where I think I want them. So you have the 2 drive axles in the back, not final placement. That one close. This one I have to figure out tires and everything. Also going to be doing a tag axle, hopefully. We'll find out if I can do that. But there's something for there, possibly. And we have the front and all this area to play. Playing around with wheelbase. It is 3 feet long. So I guess I will figure out my next steps, find my final placements, and start making control arms for it. And here we have the front axle mounted up. Everything works. It does front axle things. So now I gotta move to the back axles. And as you can see, I'm using my collection of link arms to try and make all this. And it's going poorly, but we will get it done. Let's get a rear axle on. All right. As you can see, this is the rear axle, which is on. And you'll notice it's only a 3-link. Going to do a track bar on both of the rear axles. Now the main reason behind that has nothing to do with the fact that that's exactly how big rigs are. Maybe not a 3-link, but I don't exactly know. Pretty sure they're a 3-link, but they all have track bars. Has nothing to do with that and me trying to keep this scale. The frame is super wide compared to the scale version of a big rig. But this is mine. This is how I'm going to make it. The main reason why I'm doing it is I'm out of end links and I didn't order any more. So this is what I'm doing so I can keep progression on the build. I'm going to put this axle on. All I did was make little tabs that I weld onto the frame. You'll see in the time lapse that I'm about to do. I'm going to attempt to measure it to get it squared up, and then should have 2 axles. 2 axles. Well, 3 with that one way up there. But back here, we got 2 axles. And you'll see, I accidentally welded that one crooked. So to match it, I welded that one crooked too. It's all about symmetry, even through your mistakes. So now I have to attempt to make track bars for this using plastic links, because that's all I have. So it's just a track bar. Every time I talk, that bird starts going mad. So I'm just going to drill a hole through these trusses that you can't see, but trust me, they're there. Drill a hole through that, make a bracket off to the frame, track bar. And I'll make it adjustable so I can center it properly once I get the right height. Now this thing isn't going to be the super flexing off-road machine. It has open diffs front and rear. It's not going to be super crazy, but it will be capable. Hopefully. Now I know this all looks boring, but here's the front, doing front things. And we come all the way back here. And here's the rear. Got the track bars on. Not very happy with them. They are essentially too short. That's all the travel that I have. So I'll have to redo that, but I'm going to anyhow because I wanted to make them adjustable, but they're plastic and you can't make those adjustable. It's just tighten them till they're tight and that's all you got. These, I can put nuts on them like this and I can adjust everything. So I just need to order more. But there's that. And just for reference, let's do a size comparison. So, Mercedes. I know I put it at the back, but there was no room up there. But, there you go. There is your size comparison. So, cab, sleeper, all that's going to go probably about right here, I think. And the rest will be Zach lift idea. I don't know if I can call it that, but I'm going to until somebody emails me saying stop calling that a Zach lift. And the rest of this will just be fifth wheel hitch for towing the trailer idea and the Zach lift. Alright, so it's the next day. Not happy with how wide this is, so I'm going to make it a little bit skinnier, try and get the scale a little bit more correct. We'll see how well I do. Okay, now I am much happier. Took a full inch out of the width of the frame. So now it's not as ridiculously wide as it was. So hopefully that'll look more scale, even though I don't know what scale this is going to be, but I wanted it skinnier. I'm also going to be redoing the track bars because now that this is skinnier, the track bars will be even shorter. And they were binding up, so I'm going to redo that. But first I have to think about how I'm going to do that. Here's everything done. Move the track bar all the way out to the outside, well, further outside the axle. Got this here, and now everything works much better. It's not binding, it's not pulling as much because of how short the track bar was. And the reason why this is so tricky, at least for me, is because these axles were never designed to be a track bar setup. They were designed to be a triangulated 4-link. Well, I'm not running that because I ran out of links, or link ends actually. So this is what I have to resort to. And it is more proper scale because big rigs aren't triangulated 4-links. I'm sure some of them are. I'm sure I'll be corrected. It's a toy. Remember, not actually a big rig. But everything works better. It looks better now that the frame's not so wide, because that was bothering me last night. At just looking at it, it bugged me. But we have overcome that issue. Now, the next step of this adventure for this video, drivetrain wise, will be transfer cases. As you can see, I have 2. The reason why I have 2 is because I need 2 drive shafts to go to the back. I think I have it figured out on how to do it, because we have to have power from the motors into both of them, and then 1 going to the front for the front axle, and then 2 going to the back, but they need to be the same gear ratio. So if I did my math correctly, this should work. I just have to figure out a way to mount it and to clear everything. I'm going to try putting a single drive shaft in just to make sure that my math is correct. AKA, I keep quoting math because I'm not actually doing math. I'm just counting how many rotations each one of these posts do so that I know it's the same gear ratio as the other and there isn't a drop in the gear ratio. That's what I'm most concerned by. And the front has to turn at the same as the back, but they're facing different directions. So it's a little complicated. I think I have it figured out. Find out in just a second. So here is the plan, and I just checked, so it should work. We have this transfer case and this transfer case. So basically, to get two drive shafts backwards, I need two outputs going backwards. Off of this transfer case, this post right here is going to go to the front differential. This post here is going to go to one of the back differentials. Then on this transfer case, this post is going to go to the other rear differential. Then the drive from the motor will come in to this one. Based on my calculations thus far, if I bring the motor drive into this one, it'll turn this at the same rate as that, and this will turn for the same rate for the front drive shaft, which will power everything equally. Not equally, at the same speed. That's the hope, at least. Now, once everything starts driving, is that actually going to be true? I don't know. But what are we going to do to mitigate that risk? Nothing. I'm going to make a bracket for these, put it in here, and hope for the best. We'll see. And for those of you who are just yelling at the screen that I was wrong, you're right. I was very wrong. So let's do it this way. So the drive will come into this one. Rear drive will go off of this one. The other rear drive will go off of that one, and the front drive will go off of that one, not that one. So I corrected my mistake. We'll see if I remember that when I actually get drive shafts and motors and stuff. And here are the dual transfer cases. Sit there, spin it. I have options on where I want the drive to come in. I realized I can have it come in here for a slower speed because this is a different speed than the other ones. I can have it come in here if I really wanted to, or here, or here, except for right here it gets in the way of the drive shaft and I don't know how high I can put the motor or the transmission or anything. We'll figure that out as we go. This is not its right height either. It's probably gonna be about right there, maybe? Something like that? Maybe about right there. I haven't decided on full right height yet. I need to get shocks first and then figure it out. But I have plenty of room right here because remember, this is going to be a very large cab body. So I have plenty of space to put stuff. And realistically, I put these here because it's convenient, obviously, and it's a short run for the front drive shaft. Not so much for these guys back here, but that is why they have these idler bearings. I'm gonna need about one, thinking that that's all I would need, until I saw this run from like right here to back here. That's kind of far, however that many inches is. There's a tape measure right there, but I'm sitting down and I don't feel like getting it. So I'm gonna get a couple more of these. So this thing's gonna have like 15 drive shafts probably. To get the transfer cases onto those plates, I did my same trick of using a piece of tape, marking it on the transfer case itself, putting a pen mark on it, putting it on the piece that I'm going to use, center punch, drill the holes, lines up every time. It's a cheap, easy way to make sure that where you're drilling the holes works. So, and then once you're done, you just throw it away. So that will be it for this week. We are going to keep going on it next week. If you'd like to contribute more to the channel, I do have a membership thing for $2.99 a month. I do have one project going on it. We are up to 8 members. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it very much. And to the members, I am sorry, waiting on parts. It's a slow progress project. say that 10 times fast, but it is funny. So if you'd like to contribute, that would be great. If not, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for subscribing. If you're new here, this is the stuff that I do for you guys to show you that you can make very custom RCs like so with just the metal that you can get down at the hardware store and some cheap parts off the internet. And sometimes they work. From Waffles RC, thank you all very much. Hope you enjoyed, and join us next week and we will hopefully get started on the cab for this thing. It was 90 degrees yesterday. It's now 60. California's so weird. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.